Hi students, today we're going to be working with 4.2 or 10.2, sorry, extra practice. And in today's lesson, what we're going to be working at, if you've taken good notes, you will notice that we're going to try to find out the measurements of some of the angles using some of the properties that we were introduced to in 10.1. So if you've done 10.1 and you've created all of the different pairs of angles corresponding and alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior angles, we're going to be able to find out what the angles 1 and 2 are. So, taking a look right away, we'll just start here with number 1. The objective of the problem is to find out the measurement of angle 1 and angle 2. All right. This is a set of parallel lines. Parallel line 1 and parallel line 2 is right there. We are cut by this transversal, right here. So what we have to do is we have to create what the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2 is equal to, based off of what we know of the relationship between 110. Well, angle 1 is alternate interior angles. So we have basically we have 4 concepts that we need to make sure that we remember. Corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and then we have consecutive interior angles. Okay, so if you notice that the corresponding angles, according to parallel lines, what you were told is those are congruent. Alternate interior angles are also congruent. All right, alternate exterior angles are congruent. All right, consecutive interior angles make up to be supplementary or 180 degrees. And then we have something called vertical angles as well that we talked about, and we talked to those as congruent. So what we have to do is we have to consider, well, angle 1 and angle 110 are alternate interior angles. So we're going to conclude that the measure of angle 1 is 110 degrees. And we're going to say alternate interior angles. We need to show the reason by alternate interior angles. Okay? So, clean it up a little bit. I am, rough sketching some of these extra practice items on the computer screen, which I've never done before. So we're going to be working with some, trial and error in terms of how neat the notes are in this particular page. So to find out how big angle 2 is, that's also 110 degrees. Now you can use 2 different reasons. You could use corresponding angles, or you could use vertical angles. Okay, Macy just asked for a popsicle, so we want to make sure that you're at home, so you got to defend what's going on. So now in number 2, we're basing everything off of the interior angle 63 degrees. All right, so we want to find out what is the measure of angle 1. All right, well, angle 1 is corresponding. All right, it's on the same side of the transversal and in the same location of the parallel lines. And if you're going on the intersection there, so angle 1 is also going to be 63 degrees. All right. And we're going to call that by corresponding angles. All right. And then measure of angle 2, all right, needs to be figured out by doing 180, which creates a supplementary angle, minus the 63, because you can do it one of two ways. You can form these are consecutive interior angles, or you could say that these form a linear pair of angles. Regardless, the relationship with number 2 is 180 degrees minus 63, which is going to result in 117 degrees. Okay, so that's going to make sure you label a reason by consecutive interior angles. Okay, so that responds to number 3. All right, that's number 2, and then we're going to go to number 3. Okay, so that number 3, angle 1, that's going to be a vertical relationship between 95 degrees. So we're going to call that 95 degrees because by vertical angles. And then angle 2 is also going to be 95 degrees, but that's a different reason because that's going to be alternate sides of the transversal. This is the transversal. So we're on alternate sides of the transversal. Exterior angles. Okay, so there's the first 3 problems of the extra practice. Obviously, it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Number 4 follows the same guidelines. Angle 1 is the measure of angle 1 is going to be equal to 101 degrees. That's by a vertical concept. All right, and the measure of angle 2 is also going to be equal to 101 degrees, and that is going to be by corresponding. So the more familiar you get with obviously with the pairs of angles that are formed by cutting a set of parallel lines, the more familiar and the more fluid you'll be with finding out what the angle measures are. Okay, we move down here to the last 4 problems of the extra practice where we're trying to create a relationship and find out what x is. The objective is to find out what x is, not to find out what the measure of the angle is, because we're going to be able to find out what that measure of angle is just because we know the relationship, and that's going to be 110 degrees. Well, if that's going to be 110 degrees, then we have to set this equation to equal 110 degrees. So it's going to be in number 5 to set up x plus 12 is equal to 110. We then want to do a quick solving step to find out what x is, and x then will be equal to 98 degrees. Okay, so there is section or number 5 gives you x is equal to 98. It might be wise of you to identify the pairs just for practice. Alternate exterior angles congruent. All right, that at least gives us the feedback that you're paying attention to what the angle pairs are. All right, if you've watched that. Now we're looking at number 6. Number 6, sets us up to equate those two angles again, using the concept of alternate interior angles congruent. All right, alternate interior angles congruent is going to set us up with an equation that wants us to do 10x minus 55 is equal to 45. Again, we are going to now set that up so that we can add 55 to both sides. 55 100 degrees. We're going to divide 10. X is going to equal 110, or not 110, but 10. And that will give us the option of being able to do that. And you could double check. You could check your answer by putting 10 back into that particular equation. But the simpleness of that equation is utilizing your knowledge of what the angle pair is, what the relationship is, and then being able to create that equation. All right. So now it looks like what we're trying to do is we're trying to find out what the value of x is, but it looks like we have this random 6 in there that I don't know exactly what angle 6. You just have to create the angle pair here. So you just look at that problem and you say, okay, 52 degrees, angle 6. It's kind of a weird way to show that. Measure of angle 6 is also going to be equal to 52 degrees. Okay, because they're corresponding by corresponding angles. All right, if angle 6 is 52 degrees, then we can say that the concept of angle 6 and 4x, all right, 4x plus the value of 52 should equal 180 degrees, by those being what we call a linear pair of angles. And we learned that back in chapter 6, I believe, or 8, I'm sorry. So we utilized chapter 8 in linear pair to be able to do that. So now we're going to go through the process of solving that particular equation. We're going to subtract 52 degrees. 52 degrees. We got 4x is equal to 128. Then we're going to divide by 4. And x will equal 32. All right. So again, you can put that back into the particular problem. X being equal to 32 will equal 128 degrees. 128 degrees plus 52 is going to be equal to 180. Okay. So now we're going to go through and finish up with number 4. Number 8. Number 8 wants us to find the relationship between number 2 and 153. So we are going to call those consecutive interior. So the measure of angle 2 is going to be 80 minus 153, which is going to be equal to 27, and we need to make sure we identify the reason there. Consecutive interior angles. All right. So if the measure of angle 2 is 127 degrees, then what we're going to be able to find out is that the relationship between 2, I'll highlight that in a different color this time. 2x minus 3 and 2 is going to be vertical. So 2x minus 3 is equal to 27. Again, now we're going to go through the process of adding 3, giving us the value of 2x is equal to 30. Divide by 2. I think we're probably being a little bit redundant here. We probably do know what times 2 is 30. However, we're going to first make sure that this is equal to 15. Okay, so this x value is equal to 15. We probably should say this relationship is because those angles are vertical. Again, just reinforcing the concept of what you know of the angle pairs. Vertical angles congruent. And that takes us to the end of our 4.2 extra practice. Thank you for following along. Hopefully you're continuing the progress. Make sure if you are having any trouble, contact your teacher. Office hours are between 10 and noon every Tuesday and Thursday. And we are always available for help anytime you reach out to us. Stay safe out there and have a good week of distance learning.